In 2020, at the level of immortal grass, Hengxian traveled to the world of cultivation and coincidentally bound the Xuan Huang Tian Gua. From then on, every step of improvement was a divine operation calculated with precision. Hengxian. Is there any treasure in this ruins? Hexagram. After calculation, there is a broken jade in a nearby earthen jar containing divine-level techniques, which is the strongest treasure of this relic. It is recommended to take it and leave. Hengxian. How can this pill be refined into the best quality? Hexagram. With the addition of XX grass, there is a 70% chance to become an ultimate product and a 30% chance to become a holy product. Hengxian. I want to fix that baby stage. Hexagram. He has hidden his own magic weapon at XX, and it is recommended that the host retrieve it and throw it into the pit to pollute it. Group 113-264-0482 keywords of the novel. Opening sign in and repair technique king no pop-ups, opening sign in and repair technique king txt complete collection download, opening sign in and repair technique king latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Xuan Huang Tian Gua, Sword Saint True Body. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 1 Xuan Huang Tian Gua, Sword Saint True Body, do you still have gas, young master? That's enough. If the young master dies, we servants may not be able to survive either. You said he insisted on playing Night Palace 18 at a young age, and he's risking his life playing it. This is a classical luxury room, with a faint scent of sandalwood wafting in the air. A group of maids, servants, butlers, guards, and others knelt on the ground, crying and wailing. On the innermost carved golden silk wooden bed, there lay a boy of 15 or 16 years old, with his eyes half open and half closed. If he looked closely, his eyes were clearly bright. Hengxian is a little guilty at this time. He doesn't know how to face these strange aliens. That's right. He traveled here half an hour ago. This is a magnificent world of cultivation called the Eight Wilderness Continent. A vast state spanning millions of miles, containing countless immortal mountains, kingdoms, and cities. It can be said that the cultivation families are as numerous as dust, the sects are as diverse as dogs, and the Holy Land is everywhere. He is also known as Hengxian now. At the age of 15, he is the legitimate grandson of Hengxiu, the fourth head of the Heng family in Donghuang Prefecture, Chu State, Donglan City, and the 5 major aristocratic families. The Heng family consists of over 20,000 people and 300 legitimate sons, each of whom is highly respected. However, he had no talent for cultivation since childhood, and could only follow his father Heng de Heng Eryi to manage the resources and wealth of the Heng family. The meaning of waste would flow has fur. As a person of 2 generations, one cannot cultivate in the world of cultivation. What is the difference between this and occupying a pit without defecating? Hengxian couldn't help but feel depressed. Scanning completed, soul matching, Xuan Huang Tian Gua recognizing the master. Hengxian. Lying trough. Is this the legendary golden finger here? Surprisingly. It's not a system. What kind of ghost is Xuan Huang Tian Gua? The Xuan Huang heavenly hexagram has been completed. This hexagram calculates the infinite universe of the 9 heavens and 10 realms, and the human, ghost, and demon gods who practice in the mortal world below. As long as the host inputs a question, this hexagram will provide you with the most perfect answer and feasible operation route through a super powerful calculation equivalent to the 9 immortal emperors, assisting the host's routine, looting, and beating the stick, all the way up. As soon as the voice fell, a hexagram chart appeared in my mind. There was a search engine on the chart, surrounded by 9 dragons and 9 phoenixes, making it incredibly huge. Lying trough. It's a bit interesting. Hengxian immediately tried to input in the search engine. I want to be the emperor, with 3,000 beautiful women in the harem, eating, drinking, and having fun every day, living and dreaming. How about that? A row of answers immediately appears in the hexagram. Firstly, the main objective is to elevate one's cultivation to the primary stage of this world. Secondly, there are numerous loyal supporters. Thirdly, considering that the host is too far away from the target and details are omitted, it is recommended to prioritize cultivation first. Looking at the serious answer from the Xuan Huang Tian Gua, Hengxian simply got serious and said, "It seems like I can't practice now." Answer. The host can actually practice and is a rare ancient sword saint true body, naturally favored by the rules of the ancient sword. When the true body of the sword saint is fully developed, with a single sword, mountains and rivers are shattered, floating corpses are worth billions, and sentient beings mourn for the rainbow, with few opponents. This is also the fundamental reason why Xuan Huang Tian Gua chose you. It's just that your body is temporarily blocked by fetal dirt, causing the illusion of being unable to practice. After opening the acupoint, it can be unobstructed lying trough. What is the true body position of the sword saint? Explosion. Hengxian's mind already has images of white clothes fluttering and swords flying. Input again. So how can I open my acupoints and start practicing sword saint's true body? Answer. After calculation, all you need to do is soak the girl's first sunflower in water for 5 days, take 10 plants of Longzuko, 10 plants of Longxiaozhu, 10 plants of Longjiikyu, and 50 pills of Xiantian Wan. It will open the acupoints and activate the true body of the sword saint. Hengxian thought for a moment and said, "How did these things come about?" Answer. Currently, we can only use Hengxia's business resources to purchase. Okay, will I really become a master in the future? The day is just around the corner. Can you get a girl? On the day when the host cultivates invincibility, it is the time for the saints of the world to embrace and embrace. 666. Hengxian couldn't help feeling excited. This is equivalent to carrying 9 cheating tools like the immortal emperor teacher with you. There are basically no more difficulties in the world. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but sneeze. Ah! Gongzi, Gongzi. Young master, wake up. Go and call, second master, quickly. The maids, servants, and butlers in the room instantly became a mess. Hengxian simply sat up and grinned. Small scene, everyone, don't get excited. Don't get excited. A group of maids and servants were taken aback and burst into tears. Young master comforted us. Young master wouldn't have been so polite to us before. It's over. His words are also kind when it comes to dying, and he's shining back on us, sobbing. Hengxian was taken aback for a moment, then said fiercely, "You guys are killing talented dogs. Just shut up for me, otherwise the man will kill and feed the dog, and the woman will sell and do G." There is some helplessness and a hint of excitement in my heart that I don't know how to get. This is the character design. This body has lived for 15 years, always speaking of heaven and earth, and there is nothing that I dare not do. It's really amazing. Wow. A group of maids and servants were scolded, but instead they smiled and said, "The young master has started scolding us again. It seems that his condition has improved a lot." Hengxian. At this moment, a group of people hurriedly arrived outside, led by a 36 or 37-year-old man, chubby like a ball, hugging Hengxian and saying, "Son, you finally woke up. You're worried about becoming a father to death." Hengxian had a black line on his head. This chubby white guy is a bit unreasonable. I wouldn't call him a dad, so I pushed him away and said, "Hello." Hengda was taken aback and said with an extremely serious expression, "It seems that my son is not very clever yet. He actually says hello. Someone, hurry up and call the ghost Dr. Henglayasen, and give me 9 or 18 injections. My dear father. I'm so good." Hengxian's face changed. Hengda's face changed drastically once again, even with a hint of despair. You actually call me biological father. You used to call me an old man. Did you have a ghost on you? Someone, come and call out Feng Sai, who was worshipped during the condensation period, to interrupt my son's entire meridians and warm him up again. Lying trough. Hengxian could only point to his nose and curse, "Old man. I'm not dead yet, don't mess with those little moths." Hengda's face turned cloudy and he chuckled, "Stop shouting. It seems that my son has been unconscious for a few days and has recovered well. He has already regained some of his former charm." Hengxian wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "Was it because you were too flamboyant or because I used to be too stubborn?" Hengda rubbed his chubby face up with a smile and said, "Son, let Dad take a good look." Looking at the approaching pig-head face, Hengxian's heart thumped for a moment. "It's over. What do I look like?" Quickly looked at the golden-edged jade bronze mirror by the bedside. In the mirror, the young man had red lips and white teeth, was incredibly handsome, and a pair of sword eyebrows, which seemed somewhat heroic and extraordinary. Hengxian breathed a sigh of relief and was very satisfied with his appearance. Looking at Hengda again, he couldn't help but show a hint of pity. "Old man, do you have friends surnamed Wang? Don't have any dealings with them in the future." A friend surnamed Wang. Hengda seemed to have guessed something and widened his eyes, saying, "You're really my seed. Follow your mother. Your mother is the true disciple of the great Luo Emperor, unparalleled and pure. When she was in trouble, I took care of her for 1.5 years, and then we fell in love and gave birth to you. By the way, she wrote you a letter." Speaking, he took out a letter and opened it, aiming at Hengxian. It read, "Xiener, take care of your body." Before Hengxian could fully see it, he put it away like a first love boy. Hengxian agreed to have an uncle's family as a support. Hengda patted his shoulder at this moment and said, "My son has just recovered from his illness and needs to lie down and rest well. There are 3,000 pounds of abalone, bird's nest, and lobster that ordinary people love to eat in the kitchen. Feel free to eat. If you feel lonely, call the young girls and disciples in the worship hall who have not reached their innate cultivation to 30 or 50, and take off all of them to dance and play hide and seek with you. Although you cannot practice, you must not compromise yourself. Working hard for your father and doing business to support them is all for you." "Well, all right, my father is going out with your grandfather for 1 or 2 days." Speaking coldly to a group of servants, he said, "Young master, if you have any more mishaps, you don't need to live any longer." A group of servants quickly trembled and kowtowed, "Yes." Hengda smiled at Hengxian's loving father again and hurriedly left with a group of subordinates. P.S. Jiankui equals anti. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Preparation before activating the Sword Saint's true body. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Preparation before activating the Sword Saint's true body. Looking for dozens of little girls to play hide and seek. Looking back, the servants were still kneeling and said, "Get up." The servants were stunned again, even feeling a bit panicked. Young master said, "Get up. Young master used to let us go. Go and call second master back. A group of dogs, get out of here." Hengxian cursed. "Good young master is wise and divine." A group of servants smiled happily, and the young master who was once there completely returned, rolling out the door one after another. Hengxian rubbed his eyebrows. "Can we still do this? It's really a divine world. It seems that I don't want to make people doubt that I will be playing the role of a playboy for a long time in the future. It really feels pretty good." Thinking of this, I picked up a brush from the table next to me and dipped it in ink. I spread out the paper and wrote awkwardly, "Girl's first time with sunflower, Longzuko." It is precisely the material that activates the true body of the Sword Saint. Since entering the world of cultivation is naturally the top priority. Immediately shout for the close maids Lan Xiang and Ah Go to come in. A beautiful-looking maid and a cross-eyed boy entered the door trembling with fear, and then looked shocked. "Young master. How could you do such a decent thing in writing? Oh my. Lanxiang's eyes roll over and she's about to faint. Hengxian felt bored for a moment and said, I'm just itching my hands. If I have to act, I'll sell you two to the kiln to work as coolies. Don't, young master. The two of them shrank their necks and knelt down. All right. Let the steward in charge of money and the general managers of the mansion get over me. Hengxian waved his hand. The two of them ran out in a daze. After waiting for a while, the sound of footsteps outside roared, and more than 10 middle-aged people dressed appropriately rushed over. As soon as they entered the room, they all bowed to the bottom and exaggerated, saying, the wise young master has recovered from his serious illness. Congratulations. The blessings of the Heng family, the world, and the people. Unexpectedly, there is no disdainful treatment that a waste of firewood should have. And his physical health has already risen to the height of the mortal world, causing Hengxian to feel a bit embarrassed. He handed over a piece of paper and said, what nonsense. Look at these things, how long will it take to get them all together? A group of officials and managers curiously took the paper. As soon as this gentleman recovered from his illness, what would he do again? Did you ask us to help forcibly snatch civilian women again? At first glance, indeed. The first time a girl has a sunflower. What a shameless statement. Keep looking down. Long Zuko. Dragon saliva beads. Dragon leaf autumn. Congenital pill. A group of stewards couldn't help but take a deep breath of air. The Demon King, the wise young master, is indeed a wise young master. To this extent, he has become a spendthrift, and it seems that his health is really good. There's a problem. Hengxian raised his eyebrows. An old steward accompanied him with a smile and said, young Master Xian, this woman Tiankue can only take her time to figure it out. There are many servants in the mansion who are not in charge of personnel, it's all from the courtyards of the masters, young masters, ladies, and things can't be seen in the light. A group of cowardly waste, slowly drying up. Hengxian cursed and then asked, what about the rest? The old steward looked bitter and said, the rest are all top-notch herbs for physical training. They are too expensive, and each plant costs at least 20,000 lower-grade spirit crystals, especially the innate pill, which is a necessary pill for entering the innate realm after birth. A lower-grade spiritual crystal costs 40,000 yuan. I can't afford it. Can't afford it. The Grand Heng family, with 1,000 years of heritage and even a master at the Yuan Dan level, will be short of money. Hengxian took on the role and exaggerated, jumping high. Lack. More than a dozen butlers all knelt down. The old steward sniffed and shed tears, saying, in recent years, the Yi family, Shao family, and Li family of the city lord's mansion have teamed up with us. 3-on-1, we can't play anymore. Frequent accidents occur in mines, medicinal fields are sold every year, Dan Fong cannot compete with 3 other companies, and slightly better alchemists are poached at high prices by 3 more companies. Clothes, daily necessities, spiritual pets, and other businesses have all been affected, and the resources for the children of the Heng family to cultivate are becoming increasingly scarce. The cultivation realm of the world is divided into postnatal, innate, condensed Qi realm, Yuan Dan realm, Yuaning realm, and Huashan realm. We are not sure what it is further up, but the highest level of Donglan city is the condensed gas realm. Our Heng family only has 1 head above the 5th floor of condensate gas, and the number of people below the 5th floor of condensate gas and in the innate realm cannot compare to the first 3. In the long run, the Heng family will fall. Not to mention that the wise young master needs millions of inferior spiritual crystals, even hundreds of thousands, we can't afford them. A group of butlers became increasingly sad as they spoke, crying uncontrollably. Hengxian rubbed his eyebrows and realized that the Heng family had become a bear-like mess. His identity as a wealthy second-generation and a cultivator was highly influential. I thought I could activate the true body of the Sword Saint immediately. It's amazing and can soar to the sky. Since you can't handle it, then I'll do it myself. He immediately opened the Xuan Huang Tian Gua and said, I want to get the currency of Liying as soon as possible. The answer quickly appears. After calculation, the host can make a fortune in anything they do, such as pills, spiritual tools, spiritual pets, medicinal herbs, etc. Please host any choice. Xuan Huang Tian Gua will provide you with the best solution. Hengxian breathed a sigh of relief, still believing that the Xuan Huang Tian Gua was reliable. However, what kind of business to do still needs to be seen outside. Get up and kick away a group of butlers. Get out of here, you useless bunch of trash. Leaving the door, it was the afternoon, and the sunlight was dazzling. Under the sunlight, the ancient buildings, which were scaled up repeatedly, stretched far away. Hengxian waved his hand and said, Prepare the sedan chair, I'm going out. 50 cold-faced and iron-blooded gatekeepers immediately rushed out of the courtyard, all of whom were the martyrs privately raised by Hengda. The leader's name was Ling Feng, and he even reached the innate state. He bowed and bowed, saying, Your Highness, the carriage and horse are at the front door, waiting at any time. Ah Go and another beautiful maid, Su Wanner, also acted as storefronts and followed up. Let's go. Hengxian waved his hand. A group of people crowded around him and headed straight for the gate. Along the way, Hengxian carefully examined the Heng family and became more and more surprised. The place is also too big, the house is boundless, and there are no big ladies, little ladies, or maids to grab. Just seeing him, they all ran away like a plague. After running for half an hour, a luxurious carriage pulled by 4 horned horses was already waiting outside the tall mansion gate. Donglan City is very large, so big that the carriage only ran 3 streets after an hour, and there are all kinds of shops, taverns, and brothels along the street. There are also many people, various cultivators, ordinary people, Buddhas, monks, Taoist priests, and small vendors, rubbing their shoulders one after another. Just seeing the Heng and Xian signs on his carriage, they all drove away from afar. Hengxian kept looking out of the carriage window and made up his mind to enter the Xuan Huang Tian Gua. I choose medicinal herbs. After observation, this raw material is the easiest to trade and also the fastest to make money. Answer. After calculation, the best selling pill in the nearby city of 3,000 miles is the revitalization pill, which restores spiritual energy. The main raw material for Huiyuan Dan is 7-cliff grass, and there is no other alternative. Tomorrow night, a 1-century rain of decay will fall from a radius of 4,000 miles. The damage caused by this rain to the 7 cliffs grass is devastating, and the Huiyuan pill will increase in value by 10 to dozens of times at that time. Therefore, it is recommended that the host immediately hoard 7 cliff grass. Hengxian's spirit was greatly boosted and he immediately shouted, Stop the car. Call me all the managers of the business resources in the mansion, and also tie their families together. Yes, young master. Currency of this book. 1. Top grade spirit crystal equals 10. Middle grade spirit crystal equals 100. Lower grade spirit crystal. The temporary realm of this book. Acquired, innate, condensed chi, sea of chi, elemental pill, elemental baby, and transforming spirit. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Super Smash Behavior of the Virtuous Young Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The Super Smash Behavior of the Virtuous Young Master. On Donglan City's Bolan Street, a spectacle appears. More than 10 butler-like people and 70 or 80 elderly, weak, women, and children were tied up on the street with pitiful expressions. The streets are lined with people watching the excitement. What is this doing? That bearded man is not Kong Sanyi, one of the old stewards of the Heng family. It's obvious that he has been punished by the Heng family's children. Punishment cannot be on the streets, can it? Although Kong Sanyi and his companions are servants, at least they are also influential figures. Don't you take a look at who's on the carriage. Hengxian, the only son of Heng Eryi, this guy is a notorious jerk. It's not surprising that his body has improved. Ha ha ha. Hand over all the spiritual crystals of the Heng family. On the carriage, Hengxian looked fiercely at the group of officials under the carriage, Kong Sanyi. Kong Sanyi was about to cry and said, "Why do you always want so many spiritual crystals? My father and son control the wealth of the Heng family. We have the final say, and it has nothing to do with you." Hengxian said. Kong Sanyi gritted his teeth and said, "It's impossible. As a steward, I must fulfill my duties wholeheartedly. Even if I die on this road and be despised by thousands of people, I can't just watch you act recklessly." Hengxian had anticipated that these managers would disobey and fully displayed their evil nature. He waved his hand and said, "Come on, throw his family into the pit." Yes. A few doormen nearby started dragging people. Okay. If the old slave agrees, that's it. Kong Sanye's face turned pale. This wise young master is a person who fulfills his promise. After all, working for the master's family, we cannot compensate our own family, and it's not a big deal to push on him afterwards. The other butlers were also in a state of sadness. It's over, the wise young master, this is going to defeat the Heng family to the death. Quickly, all the reserve crystals of the Heng family, including 1,000 top-grade spirit crystals, 10,000 middle-grade spirit crystals, and 500,000 low-grade spirit crystals, were pushed over by the customers. Hengxian calculated that one top-grade spiritual crystal is equivalent to 10 mid-grade spiritual crystals, and one mid-grade spiritual crystal is equivalent to 10 low-grade spiritual crystals. So, there are a total of 700,000 low-grade spiritual crystals. The Heng family is indeed very poor. Let's do this for now. With a big wave of his hand, he said, "Buy all the 7 cliffs grass and transport it to my medicine warehouse at home." Yes. 30 out of 50 guests without hesitation followed suit. 7 cliff grass. A group of butlers couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Kong Sanyi endured it for a while, but still couldn't help but say, "Young Master Xian, why do you buy so many cheap and useless things? Don't mention buying other old slaves, but the 7 cliff grass, a medicinal field, matures every 2 months and can't be sold normally. Why do you buy so many cheap and useless things?" Hengxian touched his thumb and made up a reason. "Recently, I have a new concubine who loves to take a bath with 7 cliffs grass. I'm planning to let her swim in 7 cliffs grass." He is not prepared to act in secret. The commotion is so great that he cannot hide it from others. Instead of sneaking around and making people suspect him, it's better to use one's own identity as a villain and act recklessly on the street, instead of triggering early warnings from other families and competing for business with oneself. A group of butlers turned pale in an instant, taking all the reserved spiritual crystals of the entire family. To bathe my concubine. Young Master Xian, it's so terrifying. The rampant purchase of 7 cliff grass by the Heng family quickly caused a storm in the city. The Yi, Shao, and Li families of the Lord's mansion, including the 5th-ranked Sun family, were collectively confused when the officials in charge of wealth and resources learned the news. What is the meaning of buying something like the 7 cliffs grass on a bad street? The spring palace of the Lord's mansion is the gateway to the resources and wealth of the Lord Yi family. The person in charge of the gateway is the 4th son of the Lord Yi Xian. At this moment, knocking on the table and looking down at the steward kneeling in a row, he said, "What the hell is the Heng family up to?" A steward smiled and replied, "It's not that the Heng family is playing tricks. I heard it's Hengda's son who has recovered and came out to play around." Oh. Yi Xian also heard of Hengxian and asked with great interest, "That night Palace 18. What's the plan?" The steward smiled and said, "It is said that he has taken a concubine. That concubine likes to take a bath with 7 cliffs grass." This kid smiled for Bo Marin, taking advantage of his father's absence, forced the butlers to take out all the 700,000 yuan reserve of the Heng family's lower-grade Lingjing and buy 7 cliffs grass. All the spirit crystals. So abnormal. Yi Xian frowned and thought for a while, really not thinking of any other possibilities. After all, 7 cliff grass is too common. Which of the 5 major families doesn't have 350,000 acres? Squinting his eyes, he asked, how long is the next harvesting period for the 7 cliffs grass? The steward replied, in less than 7 days. It seemed like there was no conspiracy, it was just a farce by the black sheep. Yi Xian laughed and said, great. Notify the Xiao and Li families, and the Sun family will also be informed. While Henda is not around, the adults of the Heng family have not yet reacted. Sell all the inventory of 7 cliffs grass, set Hengxian spirit crystal, 700,000 yuan, let them never think of taking back a single one. Yes. The carriage is on its way back. Watching Cheng Che and Cheng Che's 7 cliff grass being pulled back to the Heng family, while the other 4 major families and some small families, as well as Xiaodanfang, took advantage of the opportunity to sell desperately, Hengxian laughed heartily. The maid Su Wan'er frowned slightly and advised, young master, will this happen? She came from a brothel and was snatched back by Hengxian. Her appearance and talent were equally good. Although she was a maid, she was also considered the young master's confidant. Are you teaching me how to do things? Hengxian said coldly. Su Wan'er's pretty face turned white and she quickly accompanied her smile, saying, I understand my mistake. Can I play the flute for the young master? Now it was Hengxian's turn to be stunned and say, can you play the flute? Su Wan'er nodded and said, Wan'er's flute playing skills are excellent. Young master, you always have to sleep comfortably. Hengxian's heart skipped a beat and he said, then give it a try, but the float should be smaller. I'm only 15 years old and still growing. Su Wan'er was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and said, okay. As he spoke, he took out a flute from the side and played it melodiously. The melody was indeed not very lively. Hengxian. At this moment, a wave of restlessness and scolding suddenly came from outside. Ah Go, who was following the carriage, immediately reported, young master, it seems that the only grandson of Sun Liuye, who is in charge of wealth in the Sun family, is robbing a commoner's daughter on the street. Hengxian instinctively frowned, his behavior was really terrible. Just as Ah Go excitedly said, young master, are we going to participate? I'm already getting excited. Hengxian was taken aback for a moment, okay, forget that he's also this kind of person. Opening the curtains and looking outside, I saw that the street ahead was crowded with people, and around 10 skilled experts in the middle were surrounding a woman in white with good cultivation. There is also a luxurious carriage next to it, on which sits a chubby boy aged 15 or 16, with a mischievous smile on his face. That woman looks good, with a slender figure and a handsome face. However, Hengxian's gaze was entirely on the chubby boy. The 5 major families of Donglan City. The Lord Yi family, Xiao family, Li family, Heng family, and Sun family. Every family will always produce some foolish and legitimate disciples who are not suitable for cultivation. This chubby Sun Bufan is just like him, and the 2 of them share the same bad taste and have a strong relationship. Great. Let this brother handle the collection of girl Tiankue, which is so shameless. Thinking of this, he shouted loudly, "Wu that villain, robbing women on the street, is there any royal law? Is there any law? It's really shameless." Agu, Suwaner, and all the onlookers were stunned. Some elderly onlookers who were already filled with righteous indignation were immediately moved. Finally, some big shots have taken action to fight against injustice. There is still justice in heaven and earth. Unexpectedly, Hengxian said again, "This is my territory. If you want to grab it, I will also grab it. Little ones, go." The remaining 20 servants around the carriage were commonplace. With a nod, led by Ah Go, they swung their swords and dived over. The elderly were momentarily confused, and then pounded their chests and feet, shouting that heaven and earth are unfair. Fatty Sun Bufan ran over with a few close guards and a strange smile on his face. He leaned over the car window and said, "Master Xian, when will you recover?" "Without saying a word, my brother will send you 2 blue second-grade monster wind eggs." "You're really generous." Hengxian glanced at the woman in white and cursed, "This girl is very average, she has no breasts or buttocks." Sun Bufan chuckled and said, "Carrots and vegetables, everyone has their own preferences. Do you want to drop candles when you go back at night?" "I want an egg, no." Hengxian lowered his voice, "Sun Dashao, help me do something, and I'll give you a reward of 10,000 lower-grade spirit crystals." Sun Bufan's small eyes lit up instantly and he said, "Come on, let's go up the mountain to catch demons and go down to the sea to catch turtles." Sun Laojiu, a female tyrant, is willing to do so. Hengxian lowered his voice and said, "It's not that troublesome. It's the first time a young girl has a sunflower. You should understand that you're a tyrant and a scattered person like Sun Laojiu. You should know as much as you want, but don't be fooled by it. Don't be fooled by it, sister. Law. After you recovered from your illness, you actually recovered from this bite. It's a small matter, I'll make you a half tank of pure water." Sun Bufan patted his chest. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Crazy Hoarding of 7 Cliffs Grass. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Crazy Hoarding of 7 Cliffs Grass. A car load of 7 Cliffs Grass was sent from the back door to the east garden of the Heng family, where the second master, Hengda, lived. When Hengxian stopped the carriage in front of the Heng family gate and ran excitedly to the Dongyuan pharmacy. Looking at the piled-up 7 Cliffs Grass, my heart feels so comfortable. The true position of Laozi's sword saint is just around the corner. The gatekeeper next to him, Ling Feng, clasped his fists and said, "Report to you, young master. According to your instructions, we have signed a death contract with major pills, pharmacies, and markets. Once we have purchased it, we will not back out. The other 4 major families and small families, including the foreign Dan Fong, are selling off one after another, and we may not have enough Lingjing left, not enough." Hengxian frowned, "Let me think about it." The main courtyard of the Heng family, with 10 entrances and 10 exits, is luxurious and extravagant. At this moment, in the quaint and desolate Weiyuan Hall, Gathering Hall, where swords were carved, Hengwei, the eldest son of the head of the household, Hengxiu, was sitting on the main seat with a big horse named Jindao. At the age of 41, with a 3-inch beard and a cultivation of 4 levels of condensed qi, he appears very powerful. After sitting in 2 rows of the elders of the Heng family and the older members of the legitimate lineage, one person said, "Yi, Xiao, and Li are ambitious and will not die to destroy our Heng family. However, our family is gradually declining. This is not a solution. I hope the head of the family and the second master can gain something from their trip to Blackwater City." Hengwei nodded and said, "The 3 clans of Blackwater City stand together. The lord of the city, the Su family, is a bit strong. As long as this marriage alliance is successful, firstly, it will find a good home for my daughter Hengyin, and secondly, the Su family will help us a little. Our situation will definitely ease up." As soon as he finished speaking, a scream suddenly came from outside. "Grandpa! It's not okay, Grandpa!" Kong Sanyi and a few others stumbled and ran in. Hengwei scolded, "Why are you panicking? It's not appropriate." Kong Sanyi was out of breath and said, "The wise young master of the second house, use all the spiritual crystals accumulated by the Heng family to buy 7 Cliffs Grass and give my concubine a bath." The majestic Lord Hengwei, even though he was condensing his qi 4 times, heard his blood surge up and he collapsed on his back. "Grandpa! Hengwei!" A group of elders quickly rushed forward. Hengwei supported the table and looked at Kong Sanyi with difficulty, "All bought. Coincidentally nodded and said, there's not a penny left. Hengwei angrily said, are you guys eating dry food? Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you report it earlier? Coincidentally was about to burst into tears and said, the little ones, and the whole family, young and old, have been controlled by the wise young master. Moreover, this is only a matter of merchants, and the other disciples of the Heng family have not taken it seriously. They thought it was the entrance of the second master's hall that continued to buy as usual. Hengwei's eyes darkened once again and he said, second brother, I can't help but apologize to you. Today, I have to wipe out my family with righteousness. Hand over all the gold, silver jewelry, spiritual tools, and elixirs that second master and I usually give you, and your benefits will inevitably come after the fact. In Dongyuan, over 100 butlers, maids, servants, groomsmen, cooks, and old ladies stood in rows. Hengxian led his followers to lead Ling Feng, using a stick to intimidate and lure. A group of servants had to endure tears and hand over their treasures. Hengxian collected them one by one, pondered for a moment, and didn't have much money. Looking at his father's imposing room, he simply said to Ling Feng, Feng, take the antique calligraphy, paintings, furniture, spiritual tools, and elixirs of my young master and second master, including kitchen utensils, lobster and abalone herbs, all the ones that can be sold for money will be pawned. As soon as the words fell, the entire courtyard fell silent. Immediately, several butlers and a dog knelt down and hugged Hengxian's thigh, crying loudly. Young master, you can't do it, young master. The second master will come back and kill us. We've pawned everything. We can't make a living in Dongyuan anymore. What do you really want to do? It's really not possible. You can beat us to death and have fun. Bold. Hengxian kicked, I'll let you teach me how to do things, young master. Several butlers and Ah Go were kicked to the ground, still crying and howling. The leader of the gatekeeper, Ling Feng, looked embarrassed and said, have you all moved? Hengxian widened his eyes and said, are you joking with me? I'll pawn all the tables, chairs, benches, beds, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea that can be sold for money. Looking at the gaze of his own young master, Ling Feng was speechless. When the second master left, he gave a death order, and even if he eats shit, he must obey the young master, otherwise, there will be no choice but to force someone to move things, and they will quickly move everything completely, leaving no room for even a large bed. Not long after a group of people left, there were bursts of breaking the wind in the distance, and nearly 100 figures came wielding swords, stopping in the dark over Dongyuan. The terrifying power is heart-wrenching. The servants in the yard knelt down in a panic, trembling and afraid to lift their heads. Hengxian was also startled and looked at the crowd in the sky with a hard face, feeling envious in his heart. When will I reach this level? Of course, he still had an impression of these people. He looked at the leader Hengwei and said, good evening, uncle. Have you all eaten? No one pays attention. Hengwei saw the 7 cliffs grass piled up in the medicine warehouse diagonally opposite him at a glance. He trembled all over and pointed at Hengxian, saying, you villain, have done a good job. Humph. A group of elders snorted coldly. Hengxian was surprised and said, uncle also knows that I have done something good, it's not worth mentioning. Shameless scoundrel. Hengwei angrily said, how can you treat the resources of the entire clan's survival as a joke? Buy these garbage items. Garbage. Hengxian blinked and said, they're all medicinal herbs. Hengwei's fingers trembled and he said, what's the use of these garbage medicinal herbs? Hengxian naturally said, refining pills, taking a shower. Hengwei suddenly felt heavy on the head and light on the feet. An elder next to him suddenly pointed to the empty room in the east garden and said, where are the decorations in the room? Why are they all gone? Hengxian snapped his fingers and said, I've been fooled by all of them, laugh at me. A large group of constant parents took a deep breath of air, surprisingly not leaving a single stool. The loser suffered such a complete defeat, which is admirable. Iri Henga's cub, invincible. Hengwei supported his forehead and resisted the urge to strike with a palm, saying, Xianer, listen to your uncle's advice. Stop and return the medicinal herbs. Uncle will find you a divine pill, which may help you cultivate and not be idle like this. Hengxian snapped his fingers again and said, unfortunately, the contract is a dead letter, and the purchase is guaranteed to be non-refundable. As soon as the words were spoken, the last glimmer of luck in Hengwei and all the elders' hearts was completely extinguished. Even if their cultivation was successful, it was also a surge of qi and blood. Ah! Hengwei was furious and couldn't help but shout and fall down. A group of family elders behind them were also furious and landed like dumplings. Then a group of people pounded their chests and feet, saying, ancestors and ancestors. Our family is unfortunate, the Heng family has been destroyed. Hengwei pointed at Hengxian and said, Heavenly thief, I want to kill you. Hengxian blinked and said, I am the only son of your younger brother. How could you expect your younger brother to become extinct? Even if you disregard brotherhood, you still have to take care of my mother, said the true disciple of the Dalai Lama. Can you afford to provoke me? Pooh! Hengwei's qi and blood were stagnant, and a mouthful of old blood spurted out. I follow the family law, and no one can stop me. How dare you? At this moment, a group of young girls gathered around a wooden-wheeled cart not far away, with a beautiful woman under 30 years old sitting on the cart. It looks like I have a disability in my lower body. Hengxian worked hard for a while before remembering who it was. My aunt is like a constant moon. My grandfather, also known as the head of the family, is Hengxiu. He has 3 sons and 1 daughter. His eldest son is Hengwei, his second son is his father, and his third son is constantly practicing outside. His youngest daughter is Hengyue Ruo. At the age of 28, married to a certain family in a southern city. A few years ago, I competed with others and became disabled. Little sister, it's easy for you to come back and take a look at what your good nephew has done. Hengwei pointed to the yard. If Hengyue was slowly pushed by the maid towards the courtyard and Hengxian, a hint of disappointment appeared on her face. With a sigh, he said, but big brother, the second brother has worked hard for the Heng family for half his life, and his future in this life has been ruined. He's just a lone child, let alone Sister Morong's kindness to our Heng family. Hengwei was furious and said, now the Heng family has been destroyed, and all the reserved spiritual crystals are gone. Hengyue sighed again and said, this is the end of the matter. Even if you kill him, what can you do? Let's talk about it when my father and second brother come back. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Hengxian, this bastard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Hengxian, this bastard. Hengwei and a group of people left in anger and helplessness. If Hengyue were sitting on the wheel carriage, dressed in white like snow and with a picturesque expression, looking at her nephew, her face would be filled with disappointment. Xianer, you should be obedient and not act recklessly anymore. Auntie can protect you for a while, but she can't protect you for a lifetime. Hengxian coughed and took a few steps forward, saying, Auntie, my nephew is well aware of his mistakes and has decided to reform himself. He will never do anything wrong again. Hengyue Ruo's face showed a hint of relief. If you can say these words, it means that you are just a young impulse, acting recklessly, but you still know right and wrong in your heart. You're absolutely right, so Auntie, give me some Ling Jing, said Hengxian. Hengyue Ruo looked surprised and said, why do you want Ling Jing again? Hengxian naturally said, by 7 cliff grass. Hengyue almost didn't mention it in one breath and waved to the maids, let's go. Let's not pay attention to him. Just kidding, lend me some Ling Jing. I have 200 people in Dongyuan to eat. Hengxian chased after him and rubbed his nose, just not wanting to deceive this poor woman. Hengyue turned back in surprise and said, you even sold the guy who ate. Exactly, said Hengxian. Hengyue almost didn't mention it in her second breath, and suddenly regretted forcefully standing up for him. She gritted her teeth and said, I don't have money. Go away. Hengxian sighed and said, even if I reform and my aunt doesn't believe me, then I'll have to sell myself to a kiln. Anyway, I don't have money to eat anymore. Grandma doesn't hurt me, and my aunt doesn't love me. Humph. Hengyue Roa walked forward for a while, but couldn't bear it anymore. She took out a bracelet and pondered for a while. This is a beginner storage bracelet that only experts with more than 5 layers of condensed gas should have. Although there are some cracks, she said, but it is also worth 300,000 lower grade Liying, which is half of my aunt's life savings. Don't tell anyone, secretly pawn it, except for the food, leave the rest for your father. Otherwise, you are really doomed. I hope you can distinguish between importance and urgency, and not spend it recklessly. I know now, thank you aunt. Hengxian looked obedient. Hengyue shook her head and walked for a while, hesitating to stop, seeming to doubt whether giving the money to this kid was a mistake. After walking for a while, hesitating to stop again, Hengxian watched her disappear in the distance, shook his head, and if I continue to be so accustomed, I will be led into the identity of a villain, unable to extricate myself. Turn around and rush back to the yard. At this point, it was already dark. The gatekeeper leader Ling Feng has returned and is waiting. Shen Feng quickly asked, how much did you pawn it for? Often awkwardly replied, all of them add up to 213,000 lower grade Liying, 3,000. It's someone who pities second master. Sleeping trough. Is that okay? You should cry and say my dad only has 1 pair of shorts left, let him give more. Hengxian looked regretful and immediately handed over the storage bracelet to him. Go be a 300,000 spirit crystal, buy all the 7 cliffs grass before tomorrow afternoon. Ofeng looked at the storage bracelet and his heart skipped a beat. He gritted his teeth and said, young master, it's not that I'm too talkative. This thing is too valuable. Is it worth it all to exchange for some useless herbs? Follow orders, said Hengxian coldly. Yes. Ling Feng clenched his fists and left. Hengxian stretched lazily and turned around to walk back to the room. Clothes maid Su Wan'er, Lan Xiang, and servant Ah Go were serving their meals, standing pitifully by the door waiting. Hengxian glanced at a butterfly, 2 bowls and 3 mantou and said, why don't you put them on the table? The 3 of them grumbled, there's no more table at home. Hengxian scratched his nose and asked, is that all the food? Ah Go felt pathetic. There is no Liying at home. We didn't buy food at night. Everyone ate a little, and the essence was reserved for you. Speaking, the 3 people's stomachs growled together. Hengxian was surprised and said, you 3 didn't eat, did you? The 3 of them nodded slightly and said, let's leave it for the young master. Hengxian was quite moved as he focused on his cultivation career and didn't feel very hungry. He said, no more, I don't have an appetite. You can take it and eat it. As he spoke, he walked into the empty room, pulled off the blanket, and made a bed to sleep on. Ah Go tearfully said, young master, why do you sleep so early? Hengxian didn't turn his head and said, go to sleep earlier, save yourself from being hungry in the middle of the night. Get out of here. Su Wan'er's eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and she lightly lifted her vermilion lips, saying, why don't you let me play the flute for the young master? No. There's no point at all. Hengxian firmly refused. Su Wan'er's face was filled with resentment, and she murmured softly, you didn't say that before. The next day, Hengjia's purchase of 7 cliff grass continued. Rumors have spread throughout the business community, neighborhood markets, major pawn shops, and pill shops in Donglan City. However, last night, Heng Wei, the master of the Heng family, and a group of Heng elders blocked the black sheep of Hengxian's family. As a result, the news of being angry and vomiting blood was also spread by some uncontrollable servant. This made the Heng family a laughingstock all of a sudden. As for why Hengxian still has the money to buy 7 Cliffs Grass today, it is mostly because he pawned all the assets of his father and son. Because the owner of a certain pawnshop slept in Mr. Heng's bed last night and said it was great. The resource managers of the other 4 major families laughed heartache. The resource elder Yi Xian of the Yi family, the lord of the city, even ordered that the remaining inventory of 7 Cliffs Grass be raised in price, crying out for that kid. Who knew the price increase? Although Hengxian's disciples suffer greatly and have deep hatred, they still buy without fail. This has made many people interested in Hengxian's concubine. What kind of beauty is that? Can you play the flute and jade? Hengjia Douwu Field. Located to the west of the Hengjia Mansion, a place surrounded by mountains and water, surrounded by a spirit-gathering array blessed by the ancestors of the Heng family throughout history. There are not only 10 formation arenas here, but also items such as spirit measuring stones, power measuring stones, and root measuring bone stones. Every day, hundreds and thousands of disciples of the Heng family come to practice. At this moment, next to the force measuring stone, a 17-year-old boy was calm and composed, with a majestic momentum like a mountain. Hengru was the first member of our Heng family's 3rd-generation lineage to break through the innate barrier, reaching the terrifying 6th level at the age of only 18, although not comparable to the 2 demons of the city lord's mansion and the Shao family, they are also among the top in Donglan City. I truly deserve to be the eldest grandson of the head of the family. I won't accept it. 1 innate layer increases the power of 1 elephant, and he has at least 6 innate layers of 6 elephant power. Surrounded by the children of the Heng family, they whispered in unison. At this moment, Hengru leaped up with a rainbow-like momentum, his body contorted vaguely, and he punched away. Boom! A fierce light shone on the force measuring stone. The power of 10 elephants. Amazing! At this moment, 4 young girls walked not far away, all dressed in brocade and with decent temperament, gently applauding and laughing. Hengru landed gracefully on the ground and looked at the 4 people, saying, "Sister, 2nd brother, 3rd brother, 6th sister." The disciples of the Heng clan gathered around and whispered. Constant like 10 elephants, what an explosion. Who said it's not? Look, Hengyinar, Hengchong, Hengshu, and Hengyinar have also arrived. Our family has the strongest 5 members in 3 generations. As everyone spoke, the nearby spirit stone instantly shone brightly, with the stripes representing the 7 layers of innate realm exceptionally prominent. Beside the spirit measuring stone, a 15 or 16-year-old girl dressed in white like snow lightly landed on the ground, like a fairy approaching the mortal world. The onlookers all opened their mouths and said, "It's Miss Biao Xiaolingyu." Wow! At the age of 15, she reached the 7th level of innate intelligence. Isn't this more than Hengruja? At this moment, Hengru looked over coldly and said, "Are you crazy? If you're slacking off here, you're slacking off." With an audience-like demeanor, murmuring, "What's the proper way? Just a joke, huh?" A group of onlookers scattered birds and beasts in an instant. At this moment, Hengruz and the 5 of them walked toward Xiaolingyu, all laughing and saying, "Lingyu." At this moment, a figure from afar rushed over and said, "Done. Done. Completely done. Our Heng family is finished." Whether it was Hengruz, the 5 of them, Miss Biao Xiaolingyu, or the other disciples, they all looked over. The person who came was a chubby little man, out of breath and with a mournful face, said, Hengxian, that bastard, used all the resources of our Heng family to buy garbage and medicinal herbs for his concubine to take a bath. Last night, the old man was so angry that he wanted to kill him, but he was stopped by his aunt. We didn't even have money for lunch, so we had to practice for nothing. This. A large group of people's faces turned pale as Hengru. Xiaolingyu also frowned slightly and said, "Hengxian." Hengru's face was full of disgust. It's the black sheep of Uncle Air's family, let's go. I have to treat him no matter what. Let's go. A group of people rushed straight to Dong Yuan to kill. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Is. Quite sudden. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 is. Quite sudden. Hengxian East Garden. Hengxian was holding a brush, with a hint of emotion in his expression. Young master, is there enough oil? Said the dog next to him with a flustered head. That's enough. Hengxian waved his brush vigorously, and brushed the oil on a long row of roast chicken wings and mutton shashlik. The chicken is the first-grade demon beast raised by the previous Hengxian, the wooden chicken, and the sheep is the first-grade demon beast, the sand sheep. This morning, Dong Yuan was completely out of food, and the servants were starving with yellow teeth. The group of wind chickens and sand sheep raised in the monster cage were also starving and running wildly. Hengxian had no choice but to help the cute little animals break free early, kill them, and eat them. After all, having been raised for so long, there is still emotional connection. The servants drank 2 bowls of bone soup with tears in their eyes, and the more they drank it, the more fragrant it became. Each one of them drank it with a sharp eye. As for the meat, it has been skewered into hundreds of skewers, grilled wings, and so on, grilled over charcoal fire. At first, everyone was still puzzled. Is this grilled food delicious? At this moment, the fragrance slowly wafted out, and each eye became brighter. Young master, it smells so good. Su Weiner and Lan Xiang leaned over. Not only them, but also 100 or 200 servants in the yard looked like thieves. Of course, I used to do barbecue. Hengxian smiled calmly, grabbed a handful of salt, and sprinkled it from the east to the west of the fire. The fragrance is even stronger. What flavor is this? Heng Rose and Heng Yin, who came to kill, sucked their noses vigorously. Heng Ru looked coldly towards the direction of Dong Yuan and said, it came from Uncle Air's house. This Hengxian is so unreasonable. Hengxu shook his sleeve vigorously, he squandered all the family resources. We didn't even have lunch, but he ate delicious and spicy food at home, you bastard. Hengchong also said, just as Uncle Air is not here, we must treat him today no matter what. Let's go. A group of people quickened their pace and quickly arrived at the gate of Dong Yuan. Looking inside, their noses were almost crooked with anger. What big chicken wings and a lot of skewers. But it smells so good. Many people couldn't help but swallow their saliva and let their stomachs scream uncontrollably. Heng Ru's veins erupted on his face, he took a deep breath and then breathed again, suppressing his anger. Hengxian, do you know Sin? What are you being polite to him for? Hengxiu had a straight temper. Hengxian, you bastard who can't practice and doesn't engage in human affairs. Heng Yin, the eldest sister of the 3 generations of legitimate lineage, sternly scolded, you bastard, treating family resources as private property and squandering them recklessly. The whole clan is starving, but you're here to feast on it, you're killing me. Wow. All the servants of Ah Go and Lan Xiang in the yard knelt to the ground. Hengxian sprinkled herbs with a similar cumin flavor and looked up in surprise, asking, where do these fools come from? The Ah Go, kneeling at his feet, turned pale and whispered, young master, be quiet. Many legitimate young masters and young ladies from families. However, a group of people still heard it and heard Heng Chong angrily shout, you useless person, who is stupid. Heng Yin also said, insulting your fellow tribe, come on, fight for 70. Yes. Several collateral disciples of the family were about to come in. Hengxian put down the herbal medicine, clapped his hands, and his eyes were sparkling. All right, finally he met the treatment of the wastewood stream, said the same clan bully. He took the initiative to greet him, and his face was full of shame. Hengxian knows that he has committed a serious crime, and he is sorry for his family and brothers and sisters, so I don't need you to catch him. I will kill myself to thank the world. As he spoke, he picked up the sheep-killing knife from the nearby stone and fiercely wiped it against his neck. Just. Quite suddenly. This bachelor's demeanor confused a large group of people, including Hengxian and Hengxian, one by one with their mouths open and speechless. The side disciples who came to the hospital to arrest people were also stunned on the spot. Young master. Su Weiner, Lan Xiang, and Go behind them looked frightened and rushed towards them, desperately grabbing their knives. No way, young master. Young master. A group of servants also desperately knelt forward. Don't stop me, I apologize to death today to live up to the kindness of my family. Go away. Hengxian angrily shook off his servants and insisted on committing suicide, looking nothing like fraud. Young master. All the servants burst into tears. Hengxian, Hengxian, and a group of people including Miss Biao Xiaolingyu looked at each other, their faces first surprised, and then slowly showed a hint of embarrassment. Hengru coughed lightly twice and said, forget it, after all. Okay. That's okay. Hengxian threw his sheep-killing knife and calmly went back to continue grilling skewers. Hengxian and Hengchong looked bewildered. What the hell? Suddenly forget it. Our thinking has been disrupted by you. Hengxian scratched her head and said, Hengxian. Although. Hengxian raised his head and interrupted with a serious face. My brothers and sisters, don't you really think I ate these kebabs myself? Hengru frowned and said, isn't it? Hengxian looked up and sighed, of course not. Hengxian knew he had committed a serious crime and had no face to face his family's elders. In order to make up for the family's food today, I personally killed a group of pet monsters that I have been raising for a long time. They sob. They are all my children. You're here right now, just a moment. As he wiped away the tears that were gone, he turned around and went to the pharmacy. When he returned, he had an extra bag of silver powder in his hand. After hesitating for a moment, he sprinkled it on skewers and chicken wings. This is the Hengxian barbecue that I invented. It not only has the original flavor of meat, but also has some herbs that can help with cultivation. It is truly a masterpiece. Sprinkle the medicinal powder, the barbecue is just cooked, and instruct the servants to take it and personally deliver it to the entrance of the hospital. Each person will have 2 or 3 skewers. Big brother, yours. Sisters, take it. Everyone who came to provoke criticism suddenly felt a bit embarrassed and thanked them one after another. When it was Hengru's turn to join a group of people, Hengsu coldly took it and said, speak up and make a fuss. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Even if I starve to death, I'll expose my body in the wilderness, I won't take a bite from someone like you either. These are meant to be fed to the dog, don't worry. Hengchong took the skewers and said, me too. Hengxian was too lazy to pay attention and walked up to Xiaolingyu, saying, this little girl is quite well behaved. I'll give you an extra string. Xiaolingyu looked at him coldly, with a heart that didn't want it, but couldn't bear the fragrance, so she took it over and said, I'm not your little sister, I'm a cousin of the Heng family. Hengxian blinked and said, cousin. Then we need to get close. Hengru saw it and quickly blocked Xiaolingyu, saying, all right. We should go now. As they spoke, a group of people turned around and left. Hengxian reluctantly bid farewell for a while and said, come often. Go leaned up from behind and said pitifully, young master, we've given it all to them. We. Hengxian smiled calmly and said, who will compete with them for the skewers? There is still meat in the room, keep skewering. Oh my. It smells so good. On the way back, Hengxiu and Hengchong, who were preparing to feed the dog, had oily mouths. Hengru and Hengyin exchanged a glance, picked up the skewers and tasted them, and their eyes lit up. It's really good. Xiaolingyu beside him didn't even bother to say anything, and his mouth turned red as he ate. He muttered, although this Hengxian can't practice this. Barbecue is really delicious. Hengru nodded and said, I need to give my father a string to taste. That's right. Give it to the elders to taste. A group of disciples said one after another. After half a pillar of incense, many elders in the family also tasted Hengxian's meat skewers, which was truly amazing and praised. However, soon after, Hengxiu and Hengchong, who were practicing martial arts, sprayed out strange, yellow plasma in their pockets. One by one then, disciples of the Hengruz, Hengyin, and other families rushed towards the toilet, covering their stomachs. The sound of no 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 on the way was incessant, and the stench lingered over half of the family. The petite and delicate Xia Lingyu ate the most, her face turned white. As she ran and ran down her pants, splashing yellow milk. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said, Hengxian. I'm going to kill you, Mom. Grandpa Hengwei and several elders also noticed something was amiss. When they rushed to the family restroom with their stomachs covered, they found that the restroom was full of people and there were still many people queuing up. The crowd lined up and kept spraying, creating a spectacular scene. Boo! Hengwei suddenly felt hot inside and couldn't resist it. The elder next to him gave an awkward smile and said, away, did you also spray? Hengwei's face was uncertain as he finally looked towards the direction of Dong Yuan and roared angrily, God-slain thief. I can't spare you. Hengxian. I'm going to kill you. There were also waves of abuse coming from the toilet. What kind of scene is that? It's so invincible. Hengxian withdrew his gaze from the direction of the main courtyard, shook his head, and continued to bake skewers. The routine just now and the white laxative powder were both designed by the Xuan Huang Tian Gua, which is enough for them to endure. Why bother me when I'm free? At this moment, Ling Feng hurriedly ran over from outside and said, Young master, we have all bought it. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. My son Hengxian, with the capital of the great emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. My son Hengxian, with the capital of the great emperor, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Hengxian immediately threw away his brush and pulled Ling Feng aside. Have all the spiritual crystals been spent? Ling Feng nodded and said, We've spent all of it. In the morning, Grandpa sent someone to stop us and intercept the spirit crystal. Fortunately, I followed your instructions. I signed a death contract with those markets and pill shops last night. It can't be changed. Hengxian asked, Do those people in the city still have enough inventory of 7 Cliffs grass? Ling Feng shook his head and said, I've basically bought it all. In the end, a little inventory of the Sun family was also acquired by my subordinates. How many plants are there in total? Hengxian asked. Ling Feng said, 7 Cliffs grass started with 2 pieces of inferior spiritual crystals per plant, but later they raised the price to 4, 6, and 8 pieces per plant. All in all, we spent more than 1.2 million yuan on inferior Lingjing and purchased 387,637 plants. Good. Good. Hengxian coughed softly, looked at the cloudy sky. Go, strip the skewers. In the city, the heat of Hengxian's black sheep incident has not dissipated yet. Heng Xiu, the old clan leader of the Heng family, and Heng Dai returned with a desolate expression under the sunset. This marriage alliance incident was not successful. The Su family, the lord of Blackwater City, is unwilling to engage in a mere marriage alliance and offend the 3 major families of Donglan City. The Heng family has some temperament. Mr. Hengxiu's beard and hair turned white overnight, as if he had aged 20 years. At this moment, he sat on the 3rd-grade lion beast and asked, Is there still hope in the family? Hengda seemed to have lost some weight and said, Dad, it's not yet that time, don't worry. Hengxiu looked at him and said, Don't worry. Is your wife's side? Hengda looked embarrassed and said, Emperor Daluo Xingzong would never interfere in the disputes between ordinary families. Mr. Heng sighed and stopped speaking. Entering the gate of the Heng family, a group of guards greeted with surprise and said, "The clan leader and second master have returned." Hengxian nodded and sniffed his nose. "What's that smell?" Hengda also sniffed and said, "It's a bit of an overnight dinner." The guards glanced at each other and dared not speak. The group headed straight to the main courtyard and arrived at the Weiyuan Hall, where the taste became even stronger. At this moment, Grandpa Hengwei and a group of elders rushed over with their stomachs covered, and from a long distance, they urgently asked, "Dad, what's going on?" Hengxiu originally wanted to ask what the taste was, but upon hearing this, his brow furrowed and he closed his eyes. Hengda sighed beside him and said, "Big brother, it's not possible. The Su family in Blackwater City has broken their promise, and they are afraid of the three families." Hengwei slammed the table heavily and said, "How unreasonable. The Su family was still a servant of our Heng family 370 years ago. Now that I have risen, I have turned my face and no longer recognize anyone, shameless to the extreme." The other group of elders also cursed one after another. Mr. Hengxiu let out a long sigh and said in a weathered voice, "The rise and fall of our family is a common occurrence. Our Heng family has a 1,000-year-old heritage, ranking fourth in strength in Donglan City but occupying the first resource. It's normal for people to covet us. And the Su family, for the sake of family interests, is unwilling to take risks, which is understandable. This time, I took it for granted." Hengwei's face turned slightly pale and he said, "To put it bluntly, if the Yi, Shao, and Li families suddenly attack, we may not have the strength to fight back." Hengxiu looked out at the already gloomy night sky and said, "It's all fate. When we were in Blackwater City, we heard that the Bai family in the southern Purple English city had a peerless genius who reached the Qi Si realm at the age of only 18, accepted as a true disciple by Tianyuan sect, and also married a princess of the royal family of Chu. Who dares to provoke? The entire Bai family has risen along with it, with the potential to become the leader of the 6 nearby cities. It's enviable. Why can't our Heng family have such a peerless demon-like genius?" "Ah." Hengwei frowned and said, "The family has also sent more than 10 children to those major sects for cultivation in recent years. Unfortunately, they all fell in the sect disputes, otherwise it would be helpful." The whole room fell silent. At this moment, Hengwei let out a "bu" sound. Mr. Hengxiu couldn't help but say, "What noise? What's the smell?" Hengwei's old face turned red with anger, and he glanced at Hengda. He gritted his teeth and said to the old man, "If our family hasn't been destroyed by the 3 families, we will be harmed by that black sheep." Hengda was surprised and said, "Which spendthrift?" "Your son." Hengwei angrily said, "You and Dad walked forward, and he carried us on his back. He bought the cheapest 7 cliffs grass from the entire family's reserve of over 700,000 spiritual crystals to give his concubine a bath. Give back all the dead contracts. Buy and don't refund. Besides, he has taken over all of your grandfather's belongings, not even a wash basin left." Zaire and Ener went to find him to argue, but he ended up pouring laxatives on a strange barbecue, and the whole family lasted for 200 to 300 people for a day. Now the whole city is watching our Heng family's jokes. Oh, oh. Hengda's mouth twitched slightly, his face unusually bright. The old man Hengxiu next to him shook 3 times and collapsed on his back. "Dad!" Hengwei and Hengda quickly stepped forward to help. Mr. Heng forcefully pushed away the 2 brothers, looked at Hengwei with red eyes, and said in a trembling voice, "Those medicinal herbs have no hope of being returned." Hengwei shook his head and said, "I've talked to them before, it's a dead contract, no one wants to give face. Especially the Yi, Shao, and Li families. The family has been struggling to make ends meet with the income from the alchemy workshop and spiritual tool shop for the past 1 or 2 days." Puff. Mr. Heng spat out his old blood and said, "Unfortunately, our family is in dire straits. Heaven will perish, my Heng family. Dad. Clan leader. Hunwei and a group of elders were filled with grief and sorrow. Hengda's face turned red and white. Ha ha ha. Grandpa Heng laughed impatiently as he stumbled towards the door. There are no more demons or geniuses in the Heng family, and there have been many black sheep. I feel guilty to my ancestors. With a fierce turn, he pointed to Hengda and said, "Second, drive your family's black sheep into an irreparable place, send him away, let him leave the Heng family, and live and die on his own." No way. Hengda's plump body bounced high. No one is allowed to move, my son. I have been working hard for the family for decades, but in the end, if I can't protect my son, I will wash the world with blood. Kill and kill. Hunwei and a group of elders looked bewildered. With your condensed chi cultivation, did you wash away the ghost world with blood? Mr. Heng was furious and said, "You wicked person, you have turned against the heavens." Before he could finish speaking, he heard a loud bang outside and a heavy rain came crashing down. This rain is not ordinary rain, it seems to have a faint sour taste. The old man hesitated for a moment before reaching out and saying, "Huh." Hunwei and a group of elders walked over curiously and said, "Dad, what's wrong?" The eternal old man asked an elderly man with white hair, "Isn't this rain quite right? Does uncle have any impression?" The elder reached out his hand and his face changed. "Oh no, it's a once-in-a-century decay rain. This rain is destructive to medicinal herbs such as 7 cliffs grass. If you stick one drop, the whole plant will rot." Mr. Heng's face changed and he said, "Go to the medicine field." Yes. 3 or 4 elders flew into the rain curtain. "It's so sudden, I'm afraid all the 7 cliffs grass is gone." Mr. Heng muttered anxiously and suddenly looked at Hunwei. "By the way, what kind of herb did that black sheep buy?" Hunwei and a group of elders exchanged a glance and said, seven cliff grass." Mr. Heng's face changed as he grabbed Hunwei's hand and said, "How much did you buy?" Hunwei's face was unusually bright. "I bought all the lower-grade Ling Jing from the family's 700,000 yuan reserve." Later, this black sheep didn't think it was enough, so he sold all his possessions and continued to buy the next day. According to the news received by the child, almost all the 7 cliffs grass in the inventory of major family stores, Dan Fong, and Dan Yao shops in the city have been bought by him. Ha ha. Mr. Heng trembled and laughed heartily. What this means is so clear. The Heng family is going to monopolize the 7 cliffs grass area, and the price is whatever you think. 700,000. It's not a problem to change to 7 million. Ha ha ha. Hunwei and a group of people reacted and laughed along. Immediately, a group of people turned their heads to look at Hengda. Hengda's face was like that of a dying workshop, changing and changing again, and finally he looked serious. "My son Hengxian, he has the talent of a great emperor." Hunwei whispered a reminder, "Second, you can't practice." "I don't care." Hengda finally couldn't hold back and grinned wildly, "Emperor Shang is also an emperor. My son is a genius, no one can stop him." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Talents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Talents. Speaking of which, how could this kid think of buying 7 cliffs grass? I can't even use so much for a shower, my concubine, and I haven't heard of him taking any concubines at all. He hasn't even grown enough hair, and his engagement with the Xue family hasn't been fulfilled yet. Mr. Hengxiu, the Hengda brothers, and a group rushed to Dongyuan in the rain, and Hunwei couldn't help but ask. Hengda looked proud and said, "Perhaps my son has always been clumsy, but in fact, he has extraordinary talent that ordinary people cannot." "Bring it down." Hunwei said, "It's almost enough to defeat a family that ordinary people cannot defeat." Hengda said with a stern face, "Boss, my son has made great contributions this time. I don't like to hear such nonsense from you." You. Hunwei still had to argue, and Grandpa Heng waved his hand and said, "All right, what's the reason? Let's go ask him and we'll know." An elder next to him nodded and said, "That's right. Just ask him and it's clear, but what is he doing now?" Hengda was taken aback for a moment, then looked superior and said, "After my son's body recovers, he has become more sensible. There should be no accidents. Now he should be studying in his room. Is it really fake?" A group of people from Hengwei were a bit unsure. Mr. Heng stroked his beard and said, "Well, regardless of whether this child has the ability or cultivation, he is also a good child who has reformed himself." At this moment, they arrived at the gate of Dongyuan and stopped to look inside. At first glance, even with a good temper, my scalp exploded with anger. I saw a rain shelter set up in the yard, and the wise young master sat at a stone table under the shelter, wearing strange cut clothes and a white cloth tied around his neck, with a small knife in his left hand and a fork in his right hand. He is cutting a piece of meat cutlet. There is also a blood-red juice next to it that I don't know what kind of juice. Surrounded by people sitting in circles, more than 10 little girls in the middle were dancing in strange dresses. Although I can't understand what I'm doing, it's very luxurious and indulgent at first glance. The key is, what is sitting under his buttocks? The head statue of the greatest Yuandan ancestor of the Heng family standing in Dongyuan. The black sheep sit on the heads of their ancestors. Is the family still good? Everyone's passion when they came instantly extinguished a lot. Especially for the more traditional Mr. Heng, this scene has stimulated his mind, and coupled with the fact that marriage alliances are already not smooth. The descendants are unfilial and not strictly controlled, and I feel guilty to my ancestors. I'm about to cut myself with a knife. Dad. Impulsive dad. No need. Hengda and Hengwei quickly grabbed their old man. A group of elders quickly rushed inside and shouted, "Hengxian, your grandfather is here. Get up and apologize." Wow. The servants finally realized and knelt down. Hengxian glanced over and ate another piece of meat before getting up. He walked to the edge of the shed and bowed, saying, "Good evening, grandfather, uncle, father, and all the elders. Grandfather and father have come back from a long distance, it's been hard." Ah. This calm and polite demeanor made a group of people outside the courtyard look at each other, both angry and reserved. Mr. Heng suppressed his anger and asked in a deep voice, "Hengxian, what are your thoughts on sitting on the heads of your ancestors? How can you disrespect your ancestors after making trouble?" Hengxian rubbed his nose and said, "Well. It's raining heavily. Please invite your ancestors to come in and take shelter from the rain. It's really a filial piety from our children and grandchildren. Sitting on his head is called intergenerational happiness. Between ordinary people, grandpa carrying his grandson around is a sign of family harmony. And my ancestors eating with me, it shows that the Heng family will prosper, my grandfather. Actually, there's really nothing left to sit on. It's just an abstract stone gurgling. I didn't think too much about it. Whose ancestral statue is carved with a head? This." A group of Hengwei people glanced at each other. This kid makes a lot of sense by talking nonsense. Mr. Heng's face improved a lot and he shook his head without hesitation. "Take a look at the medicinal herbs." A group of people hurriedly ran to the pharmacy, looking at the 7-cliff grass piled up in the mountains, feeling excited and burst into laughter. When he turned around, he saw Hengxian sitting on the head of his ancestors cutting meat again, and everyone became less angry. Mr. Heng pinched his beard and asked, "Sienna, why did you buy 7 cliffs grass in advance?" A group of people from Hengwei, including his father Hengda, stared intently over. Hengxian didn't even lift his head and naturally said, "I'll just pinch my fingers and calculate it." This arrogant and coaxing appearance is obviously not very credible. It's impossible to predict something like rotten rain without the realm of Yuandan. The crowd scanned toward Su Wanner, who was closest to him, and couldn't help but chuckle. This girl was drifting around for nothing, as if she had been washed out of herbs. Heng Wei shook his head and said, "You kid, you accidentally made a big contribution. These medicinal herbs can be sold to earn at least 10 times the profit, huge profits." Hengxian was surprised and said, "I made a huge profit. What are you happy about? When you wanted to kill me, that's not what you said, dot." From Mr. Heng to a group of elders, their smiles froze on their faces, and they were all confused. Good guy, buying 7 cliffs grass with him has nothing to do with the family. Heng Laozi looked at Hengda and shook his sleeve, saying, "How did you teach children? Rebels. Don't sit on your ancestors anymore. Turn around and leave with the person. There is only my family left in the yard." The two of them looked at each other silently. After a while, Hengda sighed and said, "My son is a genius." "Okay, I praised it directly." Hengxian had prepared a lot of lines to deal with his father but couldn't use them, so he nodded and said, "I flattered my father." Hengda walked over and tasted a piece of Hengxian's lamb chops, saying, "But hide your foolishness and avoid being jealous." Hengxian. "I understand in seconds. How much profit do you want from the 7 cliffs grass?" Hengda pretended casually. Hengxian said cleanly, "Of course it's all." Hengda immediately gave a thumbs up and said, "Okay. That's tough. You have half the demeanor of your father and me back then." Hengxian nodded and said, "Please accept, Dad." Hengda hesitated for a moment and said, "But after all, you are a child. You can't really leave your family behind. It's not like giving your father face. You should be triple-minded." Hengxian shook his head and said, "I want Zhechong." Hengda sighed and said, "4-fold. 8-fold. 5-fold, no more. 7-fold, we can't lose it. Lu Chong, you alone are more than the entire family. Deal." Hengxian leisurely ate the last piece of lamb. It's obviously impossible to monopolize profits. Hengda. Did you get tricked by your son? Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. The 7 Cliffs herbal field is irreparable, and all families have lost their money. And we also have to face the shortage of the revival pill, which will lead to a situation of relying on others for breath. All of this could have been avoided. The elders in charge of the Yi, Shao, and Li families, who had originally gathered together to discuss major business cooperation, remained silent as they watched the rain outside. "I feel even more uncomfortable than eating flies. We seem to have all been tricked by that little kid from the Heng family. That little bastard at 18 should not have such skills. Are you saying that the Heng family used that kid's hand to numb us, warning and hoarding in advance? It is very likely that the Heng family is the oldest family in Donglan City, and there may be some means that ordinary people do not have. It's not very likely. This decaying rain is a brilliant heavenly power, at least the hermit master of Yuan Dan Deshang could have discovered it himself. It seems that kid really stumbled upon me. This shit luck, talent." There was another moment of silence. At this moment, a chaotic sound of footsteps came from outside, and servants from the 3 families came in one after another. "The clan chief, please go back and discuss countermeasures with the elders." End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Unusual Trading, Septic Tank Liying. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Unusual Trading, Septic Tank Liying. The rot rain lasted for 3 days. The 7 Cliffs herbal field, which covers a radius of 3,000 to 4,000 miles, has all decayed. There is no room for redemption. And the event of Hengxian, the black sheep of the Heng family, hoarding 7 Cliffs grass in advance, was uncovered and quickly fermented. The whole city is divided into 3 schools, 9 streams, 5 major families, more than 10 small families, and various major markets, causing a great uproar. How did Hengxian give early warning? There are 3 mainstream theories. 1. Hengxian is just a cover, and behind it, the mysterious magic weapon of the Heng family foresaw the decay rain. 2. Hengxian is a pure blind cat who meets a dead mouse. After all, it is normal for someone who used to be a night maid to buy the entire city's 7 cliffs grass for his concubine to swim. 3. His mother, disciple of the Dalai Lama, quietly sends someone to deliver the letter. These 3 statements, except for the second one, cannot withstand scrutiny. But no matter what, everyone will be facing the dilemma of returning to the Yuan Dan. The Huiyuan pill is an essential good pill for the acquired, innate, and condensed qi states. Although there are also similar pills, the effects are different, and secondly, everyone is used to the Huiyuan pill, the body has developed dependence. Without the revival pill, there is no energy in doing anything. So, the Heng family's forced miso jumped up. The people who flatter every day almost break through the threshold. Mr. Heng laughs every day, as if he has found the feeling of first love. The eyes of the other 4 major families are dripping blood, but they are very helpless. Can't we go to war just because of this? On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the Heng family released the first batch of 10,007 cliff grass plants at a price of 20 lower grade Liying per plant. Increased the price 10 times directly. However, it was sold out in the blink of an eye. Hengjia instantly earned 200,000 lower grade Liying. The whole family is in celebration. The protagonist of the 7 Cliffs Grass incident, Xianda Gongzi, disguised himself and carried 10,000 inferior spiritual crystals in a beast skin box, quietly leaving the door with 20 disciples including Ling Feng. Because the extraordinary young girl Tiankue from the Sun family has been taken care of and arranged to meet in front of a dilapidated house in the north of the city. When we arrived, we saw a desolate area surrounded by weeds. Sun Bufan sneaked over from the corner with people in his 20s and 30s, and stopped a long way away. Did Ling Jing bring it? Hengxian was taken aback for a moment, looking at the familiar scene and coldly replied, "Have you brought the goods?" Sun Bufan clapped his hands and one person behind him took out a small water jar. Hengxian also clapped his hands, and Ling Feng proposed the animal leather box containing the spirit crystal. The 2 people squinted their eyes and slowly approached. Arrived in front of me. The suitcase and small water tank were placed in the middle. Hengxian squatted down and opened the suitcase, revealing a full of spiritual crystals. Pure texture of 10,000 old mountain mines outside the city, inferior spiritual crystals. Sun Bufan also opened the small water jar and said calmly, "From 11 to 15 years old, 367 young girls' first-time sunflowers are absolutely hard, fresh and pure." Hengxian squinted his eyes and said, "Take a bite, otherwise I won't believe you." "Okay." Sun Bufan pretended to put his hand into the small water jar and quickly withdrew it. "It's fishy, I won't do it." Haha. Several dozen guards around couldn't help but laugh out loud. Hengxian shook his head and cursed, "How could you, a hammer, make an appointment in such a haunted place?" Sun Bufan sighed and said, "There's too much commotion on my end. My dad and grandpa are going to depose me, it's so easy for them to run out." As soon as the words fell, a dense sound of footsteps could be heard in the distance, and someone shouted sternly, "Illegal transactions. The constables of the city lord's mansion are arresting people. Everyone inside is not allowed to move." Hengxian looked at Sun Bufan and said, "Wemo. There's an inner ghost, you betrayed me." Sun Bufan looked embarrassed and said, "A jar of girls and aunties, isn't it worth it?" "That's right." Hengxian nodded and said, "What would happen if we were caught in this situation?" Sun Bufan's face turned white and he said, "With our identities, at least 100,000 lower-grade spirit crystals can redeem people." Hengxian immediately opened the Xuan Huang Tian Gua and said, "Give me a plan." Answer. Running east has the highest chance of escaping. Hengxian picked up the small water jar and threw it to Ling Feng, saying, "Flash." The 2 waves of people each played their own tricks and ran away. Hengxian ran and looked around, and there weren't too many constables coming, only 60 or 70, with 30 or so coming to chase them. The winning rate of hard competition is not high. After thinking for a moment, he ordered, for every 3 zhang run, 1 person will be assigned to drill into the fork in the road. Do you understand? Guests. Understood. Just running and scattering all the way, the pursuers were indeed led astray, not a single one caught up. As we approached an old residential area, it suddenly started to rain lightly. And a strange appearance of a 15 or 16-year-old girl appeared earlier. Wearing a tight constable outfit and a high-footed hat, holding a sword, with a melon seed face and willow leaf eyebrows, he sneered. Yi Qingyi from the Yi family of the city lord's mansion, a constable of the criminal department, born with 5 layers, was given the nickname, Fairy in Qingyi. If you put down the water tank, I can spare you from dying. Hengxian stopped and looked at Ling Feng. Go ahead, get rid of her. I can't stand her pretentious behavior. Ling Feng's face was awkward and he said, she is 3 levels higher than my subordinate. I may not be able to defeat her, but young master, let's go first. I'll hold her back. As he spoke, he handed the menstrual blood jar to Hengxian, drew his sword, threw himself forward, and threw himself forward. Without saying a word, Hengxian turned around and left. Just as I took 20 steps here, I heard Ling Feng's muffled groan coming from behind. Yi Qingyi continued to chase after him and said, your guards are vulnerable. Where do I see you going? Hengxian opened the Xuan Huang Tian Gua again and said, give me a plan. Answer. This woman is good at jumping martial arts, but she has a habit of leaning left, which should be a habit of cultivation. There is a septic tank 30 meters ahead on the left side of the road, with extremely strong suction. The host runs 30 meters on the left side of the road and then squats down, received. Hengxian ran wildly, silently counting 30 steps and squatting down fiercely. Dawei Tian Long Claw, oh. A gust of breaking wind came from behind, but the car couldn't stop and fell off his head. Puff. Yi Qingyi fell into a large black manure pool in front of her. For a moment, feces and sauces flew everywhere, and the stench filled the nose. Yi Qingyi was instantly buried in her chest, and when she was nervous, she choked on thick feces and suddenly vomited. Confirming that Yi Qingyi would not be able to escape in a short period of time, Hengxian leisurely hugged the jar and squatted on the shore, smiling as he said. What is the taste of the fecal sauce that has been aged for at least 3 years? Yi Qingyi pointed at him, and as soon as she opened her mouth, she suddenly vomited again, oh. Hengxian continued to smile and said, give me the mighty heavenly dragon. Demon, I can tell at a glance that you're not a human. You're just a small worm carving skill, and you dare to teach others how to do it. Yi Qingyi finally took a breath and struggled to get out of the excrement. Hengxian. It turns out you're a waste. I'm going to kill you. Hengxian continued to smile and said, I'm useless, but I can't jump into shit. Don't think you're a fairy in green clothes. If I were to break free, I would give you face. Yi Qingyi's lungs were about to explode with anger, and she kept nauseous. Oh. You have the ability to compete with me in a fair and upright 1-on-1 battle. You useless cultivator. Your Heng family is all useless. We will eventually exterminate your Heng family. You useless waste. Hengxian's face became serious and he said, you said the Heng family is useless. I won't argue with you, but you said I can't. I am destined to become a master. Within a month, I will go face to face with you. Remember my words. Turn around and leave. You trash, I can kill you with just one finger. Your entire Heng family is trash. My 6th younger brother Yi Xiaoyao is about to break through the condensation and become the first young generation in Donglan City. Can anyone in your family compare to him? Yi Qingyi is still shouting and shouting. There is only a rain curtain in front, where is there still the shadow of Hengxian? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The birth of 2 great demons and the sound of sword that resounds throughout heaven and earth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The birth of two great demons and the sound of sword that resounds throughout heaven and earth. Returning to Hengxian East Garden, it was already dark. Not long after, Ling Feng covered his bruised eyes and a group of disciples also returned one after another. They are small characters with no oil or water, and the city lord's mansion constables generally do not arrest them. It is said that Sun Bufan was not caught either. Yi Qingyi was not drowned by feces either. However, Hengxian didn't care about these anymore. He immediately embarked on his great cultivation career, asked the servants to prepare a large water tank filled with warm water, close the door, and no one is allowed to disturb. Then open the Xuan Huang Tian Gua and say, "The maiden's first time with a sunflower has arrived, how can I use it?" Hexagram answer. Enough. It is recommended to divide it into 5 days and 5 times, mix it with warm water, and soak it for 2 hours a day. Hengxian immediately opened the lid on the jar and poured 1/5 of his menstrual blood into it. Watching the gradually turning red water tank and the fishy smell. I think it's a bit unreliable. Anyway, go ahead. Taking off his clothes, gritted his teeth and jumped in. I don't feel much, but there's a bad luck of being insulted. Hengxian immediately opened the Xuan Huang Tian Gua and said, "For 4 hours a day, I've been soaking my bald skin. I suspect you're playing me." Answer. The calculation of the Xianhuang heavenly trigrams is extremely precise. The host belongs to the highest yang constitution, and for the first time, the female Tiankue belongs to the innate first strand of yin impurities. Only by combining yin and yang can blockages be opened, and then stimulated with medication can the true body of the sword saint be formed. Okay, trust you once. Outside Hengxia, the business of 7 Cliffs grass is thriving. Dongyuan Hengxian, my aunt is soaking in a bath like a madness. This has made the servants very nervous. Since the young master recovered from his illness, he doesn't look for girls, doesn't show off, and loves to take blood baths. Coming out with blood every day, it's really scary. On the 5th night of the blood bath, Hengxian went straight to his father Hengda's doorstep, asking for money. Take 2.5 million first. Hengda is really not good at rebelling against his son. The next evening, he really gathered 2.5 million lower-grade spirit crystals. Painful son, he is serious. Hengxian became more serious and directly handed Ling Feng the herbal prescription for Sword Saint True Body. Limit your time to 1 day, deal with these. Ling Feng lost face in front of Yi Qingyi last time and felt guilty. When he received the task, he took it very seriously. In 1 day, I really bought everything. Hengxian became excited, holding herbs and congenital pills, and plunged into the most remote house in Dongyuan. He gave a death order, saying that whoever dares to approach, I will kill anyone. The servants are collectively confused. Young master. Don't you want us anymore? Compared to the mysterious nature of Hengxian, the business of chia grass outside is booming. The Heng family is hanging on everyone's stomachs, releasing a little every day, no more, no less. The starting price is 10 times, and later it's 15 or 20 times. Too expensive, you can use something else. Within a radius of 4,000 or 5,000 miles, there is no other branch for this one. Half a month passed like this, and the Heng family was making a lot of money. On the 9th day of September, in the evening. Today is the anniversary of the deceased wife of Mr. Heng. The main thousands of children of the Heng family went to worship one after another. Hengda also returned early from the outside market and looked around. Where's the young master? Ah Go and Lan Xiang quickly said, Young master, I've been in that room in the northwest corner for a while. Closed. Every day, except for eating, I just close the door without seeing anyone. Whoever dares to get close will kill anyone. Closed door. Hengda's heart skipped a beat. What's the point with this little guy? What are you thinking about again? After thinking about it for a while, forget it. This kid has never participated in the ceremony for his grandmother, and it's been a year. Hurry to the main courtyard with people. At this time, the main courtyard of the Heng family was already crowded with hundreds of elders both inside and outside the family. Hundreds of major members of the Heng family, including Miss Biao Xiaolingyu, including Heng Rose, Heng Yin, Heng Chong, Heng Su, Heng Yinger, have also arrived. Under the leadership of the old man Hengxian, everyone first offered incense to their deceased mother, and then also offered incense to their ancestors. Finally, everyone took their seats. Mr. Hengxian sat in the main seat and looked down at the dark family members below, full of energy. With a wave of his sleeve, he said, "It's rare to gather together. Our Heng family has recently made a small fortune. Let Hengda talk about it." Hengda's chubby body stood up and coughed. "When it comes to this wealth, it's time to talk about his son Hengxian. He's 15 years old this year, and although he can't practice, he's naturally intelligent, loved by everyone, and flowers bloom. The most important thing is that he will seize the opportunity. Speaking of timing, I think of the summer when he was 3 years old." The whole hall is quiet. The elders looked bewildered. The younger generation pursed their lips. "I haven't forgotten about my diarrhea recently. If it weren't for that bastard's meritorious service, everyone would have gone to treat him long ago." Cough. Heng Wei and Heng Yue, siblings, coughed hard at this moment. Hengda, who was praising his son's enthusiasm, angrily said, "What are you two coughing for? Why are you making no one talk?" "Speak the point," said Mr. Heng. Hengda remained unsatisfied and said, "Okay, all of this is thanks to my son. He has hoarded nearly 400,000 plants of 7 cliffs grass. Over the past 2 days, nearly 100,000 plants have been sold one after another, earning over 4 million yuan from inferior Liying. This is almost our family's income for several years. We still have nearly 300,000 plants of chia grass, which will be sold out gradually before the new chia herb field matures. There is still over 10 million yuan in revenue from inferior Liying, which is equivalent to our income in the past decade." Hee hee. Grandpa Heng smiled very comfortably. "Did you all hear me? I have decided to give all the direct descendants and elders of the family a higher level of worship treatment." As soon as the words fell, there was a scene of joy below. At this moment, in the distance outside, 2 strange waves of spiritual power suddenly appeared one after another, which could be faintly felt in the room. The lobby instantly quieted down. Heng Wei looked outside and frowned. "This is the breath of condensed gas. Has anyone broken through the condensed gas realm?" An elder said solemnly, "It's good to break through the condensation state, but these two momentum are too majestic and different. They're not ordinary condensation, are they?" Mr. Heng waved his hand and said, "Go out and take a look." The crowd clattered towards the front yard. Looking towards the night sky, I saw 2 places in the city, 2 clusters of spiritual energy soaring into the sky. What kind of breakthrough is this? Why is there so much noise? Hengru asked curiously. Mr. Hengxian frowned and said, "Everyone's spiritual energy fluctuates differently when they break through. Generally speaking, the greater the fluctuation of spiritual energy, the greater the future. These 2 waves of condensed gas breaking through the sky are not simple." At this moment, 2 waves of spiritual energy suddenly changed, one twisted into a unicorn shape, and the other twisted into a phoenix shape. Spiritual energy appearing. Everyone was surprised. The Eternal Master said with a heavy expression, "That's right, it's the manifestation of spiritual energy. It is said that practitioners start from breaking through the condensed energy realm, and each time they break through the great realm, the spiritual energy in the sky fluctuates, usually in 4 forms. The first type is the obscure fluctuations that are forcefully broken through. The second type is a regular breakthrough with a moderate level. The third type is the manifestation of spiritual energy, perfect breakthrough. A person who breaks through perfectly is basically not a problem breaking through to the next level. And the combat power is extremely strong. The last one is the illusion of heaven and earth, the breakthrough of the Hengxian. The people who break through the Hengxian are unparalleled geniuses and demons, rare occurrences in 100 years. These two young people in the city have already shown their spiritual energy. Not only is it not easy, but breaking through the Qi realm is just around the corner. Speaking, full of bitterness and envy. The crowd around took a deep breath of air conditioning. It has been many years since there were any Qi realm masters in Donglan City. Will there be two in the future? Unfortunately, none of them are from our Heng family. At this moment, several disciples of the Heng family hurriedly arrived outside the courtyard and said, to inform the Lord, Yi Xiaoyao, the 16-year-old genius of the city Lord Yi family, has broken through the condensation. At the same time, Xiao Qiyun, a 15-year-old genius girl from the Xiao family, also broke through her condensation. The two major families are cheering and jumping at this moment. It's the Yi and Xiao families. The Heng family in the yard silently looked at each other, their faces very ugly, and their emotions were extremely heavy. These two families are in a hostile state with the Heng family. This is not a good thing. Hengruas, a group of younger generations, blushed with embarrassment. At the age of 18 or 19, he was born with 6 or 7 layers and was still complacent. He had already broken through his condensation at the age of 15 or 16. The comparison is too infuriating. Clan leader Hengxiu, Hengda brothers, and a group of elders silently watched as the two clusters of spiritual energy still gathered under the moonlight emerged. Caught in my heart, indescribable discomfort. The joy of making a windfall has disappeared completely. Compared to the emergence of evil talents in the family, leading the family to rise, that little wealth is nothing. Mr. Heng stumbled forward a few steps, as if he had aged 10 years again for a moment. Heaven does not bless my Heng family. Why is it that my Heng family is not prosperous and geniuses do not emerge? What exactly did I do wrong, Hengxiu? I can make amends. As he spoke, his eyes turned red and he trembled as he said, we can't fight them anymore. We can't fight anymore. The Heng family will suffer a disaster sooner or later, and it will be destroyed by the old man. Puff. A mouthful of old blood spurted out. Old clan leader. Dad. Grandfather. A group of people from Hengwei and Hengda quickly stepped forward to help, each feeling distressed in their hearts. The genius of the Yi and Xiao families has emerged in this world, and the Heng family, which has always been hostile to them, is not far from being destroyed. This is reality. Just at this moment. Mutations arise suddenly. A massive and unparalleled momentum flashed out from somewhere, and then rushed straight into the night sky, shaking open thousands of miles of clouds. The sharp and irresistible sharpness seems to be able to cut through heaven and earth, intercept the 4 seas, and be everywhere. For a moment, it made the scalp tingle and breathing difficult. Those two spiritual energies instantly became weaker than ants and dispersed in an instant. Choke. A sword roar from somewhere, echoing through heaven and earth. Everyone in the city couldn't help but cover their ears. Many ordinary people without cultivation are even stunned and unable to find the north. End of this chapter.